Finland. Here, warmth isn't just a comfort, it's a culture. But now, the nation that has perfected staying warm in any condition is finding a new way to do it. 50 meters below the streets of Helsinki, a hidden network of tunnels hums with the sound of machinery.
Wow, so where are we?
We are at the Helen heat pump station, where we do cooling for the Helsinki data centers. And we take the cool and sell it as a heat for the Helsinki households.
Here's how it works. Above ground data centers, the engines of our digital lives, generate vast amounts of heat as they power everything from AI to streaming video. That heat is captured and piped into Helen's system, where heat pumps raise its temperature even more and send it through the city's district heating network. The same system then returns cooled water back to the data centers. It's a test case for whether our growing digital appetite for energy can be contained.
They have a problem with heat, and they need to cool down somehow their premises. And our job is to sell heat. In the end, we can actually monetize their problem.
For the local community, the benefits are tangible. Electricity prices that sit below the EU average. Helen's newest partnership is expected to provide warmth for roughly 1,500 homes.
We have been able to increase our profits. At the same time, we have now lowered our prices 2 times in a row during the last 2 years.
Helen manages the heat, but it's Equinix that runs the data centers, more than 270 of them worldwide.
Managing the heat is one of the larger parts in operating a data center.
The heat, a reminder that every click, stream and search has a footprint somewhere in the real world. Managing it is one thing, finding a way to use it sustainably is another.
The way we measure our data centers is very thoroughly with efficiency measures per each square meter. That's on top of mind of any data center operator, because that's money. And it's also a proof point to how good of a data center you have towards your customers. On top of that, we add back to the society in which we invest in infrastructure.
Around the world, the race to build for AI is putting new strain on power grids and sparking a backlash. A Bloomberg analysis of wholesale electricity prices across the US found that electricity now costs as much as 267% more for a single month than it did 5 years ago in areas located near significant data center activity. The question now is, can the race to get there first coexist with the desire to get it right? Nowhere is that question more urgent than in the US, home to more than 5,400 data centers, more than all other major economies combined. In the data center race, efficiency is the new currency, and even the world's biggest hyperscalers aren't immune from the pressure to balance growth with sustainability.
Clearly AI is growing in its use case and diffusion across the globe, and we're seeing that in our own business. And clearly, we need to do more of the same things in sustainability and contract further renewable energies. And so there's a lot of great opportunities that we have ahead of us.
What do you think your example says about Finland's approach to decarbonising its economy, but growing at the same time?
Well, I think and I hope we can show to the rest of the world that you can do the decarbonizing in a profitable way. Because I don't believe it's going to happen if it's forced by state or EU or any other regulatory issues. You have to find a way how to go to CO2 zero so that you can make money with that. Then it starts to happen. And I really hope we can be an example how that is done.
In a moment when our digital lives demand more than ever, Helsinki offers a quiet reminder that progress isn't measured only in speed and scale, but in the balance we keep as the world races ahead.
Tomorrow night, the New Year's Eve countdown in the Trump Kennedy Center will sound differently than originally planned. The Cookers, a jazz group scheduled to perform 2 New Year's Eve performances, has canceled. While the group did not give details behind the decision, one band member, Billy Harper, shared in a Facebook interview, quote, "I would never even consider performing in a venue bearing a name and being controlled by the kind of board that represents overt racism and deliberate destruction of African-American music and culture." A New York-based dance company, Doug Verone and the Dancers, is also canceling 2 shows in April, a decision that the head of the company told the New York Times was, quote, "financially devastating but morally exhilarating." It joins the likes of several stars, including those involved with the Broadway musical Hamilton, canceling performances. We're back here at the table. Collinson, I think the thing that I get stuck on with this is I feel like the Trump administration loves this on some level. In fact, like, read the quote from Richard Grenell, who's now the Kennedy Center president, posted on X. "The artists who are now canceling shows were booked by the previous far-left leadership. Their actions prove that the previous team was more concerned about booking far-left political activists rather than artists willing to perform for everyone regardless of their political beliefs." He calls it a form of derangement syndrome. The arts are for everyone, and the left is mad about it.
Yeah, historically, the Trump administration and the president particularly has welcomed these cultural fights against what they regard as left-wing entertainers. It helps the president come across in his preferred persona as the outsider, somebody that's taking aim at cultural, taboos, etc. And I think you can have an argument about whether the National Arts Center, which is basically what the Kennedy Center is in the Capitol, has had programs that have perhaps trended liberal in recent years, whether that reflects the whole country, but the arts are generally a pretty liberal arena. A lot of the performers are fairly liberal, and ultimately I think they're going to have a marketing issue here, because a lot of the people that subscribe to the Washington National Opera or the National Symphony Orchestra, they come from the Washington, D.C. area, which is, as we know, is an area where the president isn't particularly popular. So this whole idea that the president has saved the Kennedy Center, which he said was in real financial trouble, as well as its own, physical infrastructure, that could be challenged if they struggle to get programs. And patrons of the arts who are on the liberal side of politics see it almost as an act of personal resistance of not showing up to a building that's got Trump's name on it.
Here's Mikaela Shiffrin. Shiffrin told us that last week's win in Levy was as good as she has ever skied. It was close to perfect. Already the greatest skier of all time, so she is in top gear as she goes for her 3rd consecutive slalom victory on the World Cup.
Builds on her lead, puts in 0.3 of a second in one section.
Eight tenths ahead.
It is just flawless. And what else? It is on her limit. This is Mikaela Shiffrin trying to push to the level that she reaches in training, and that is untouchable.
Now almost a second ahead. Final gates. Mikaela Shiffrin in slalom, the best show on snow. And World Cup win 1:03.
These are not small margins by which she is winning. In Levy, Finland, 1.6 seconds. In Gurgel, 1.23. She has not lost a run of slalom this year. Coming out of bib number 30 in these conditions to have the fastest second run time, that is a statement. And the appetite for speed, the willingness to take risk when she had a pad is impressive. That is a mindset that Mikaela Shiffrin has brought into this season.
And Steve, she said that she trained slalom a lot less in the offseason because she had to put so much emphasis on her giant slalom looking ahead to this season following last year's injury.
In first place, and today's winner, representing the United States of America, Mikaela Shiffrin.
She usually eases into a season, but she said for this year she wanted to psych herself up. She wanted to be in top gear and ready to go right from the jump. It's an Olympic season. There's so much to do. She didn't want to waste any time. And boy, has she found her rhythm, her flow, her jam in these first few races.
We begin tonight with an extraordinary sight in Metro Atlanta. Thousands of people lining the streets in Fayetteville today to witness a group of Buddhist monks on a 2,600-mile walk for peace. The monks left Fort Worth, Texas in October, and they won't stop until they reach Washington, D.C. in February. Our Nicole Williams caught up with them today in Fayetteville. And Nicole, this was unbelievable. The community really showed up in a big way.
They really did. I mean, and it was a powerful showing of community, compassion, and support as they made their way through Fayette County today.
People packed into the Trilith community Monday, not for a performance or event, but to be a part of a moment. Cars lined the streets for miles. Many walked just to witness the monks pass through Fayetteville on their journey for peace. Chants echoed as supporters gathered. Some just wanted a glimpse. Christine Tran, a volunteer cooking lunch for the monks, was overcome with emotion. Her reason for being here was simple: to share love through service. Food is one of the ways the community showed up.
Rice flour and pork, and a black mushroom, and an egg.
Her friend explaining what was being served.
The leaf is just the wrapping. You don't eat that. The inside is, I think, shrimp pork, and the outside is flour.
Just behind her, LaShonda Easley prepared plates from a table full of donations.
Seeing them walking barefooted is set aside for me to put away my personal feelings and to bring peace within my family.
Before eating lunch, the monks addressed the crowd. A key figure in the Buddhist community shared what's at the heart of this cross-country walk.
Everybody will live in harmony and unity with peace, love, and kindness and compassion.
Atlanta and Fayette County holds special meaning for them.
It's very honored and very grateful for us.
Donations kept coming as the monks ate behind this black curtain and prepared to continue their journey. More food, water, and supplies, all offered by strangers.
Thank you.
Even the youngest supporters stepped in.
Donations!
Volunteers worked behind the scenes.
We're actually separating everything so that it's easy for them to pick what they need, take with them.
The donations aren't just for the monks. They're for anyone here in need, turning this walk into a grassroots effort.
I was going to travel to see them and found out that they were coming right by my town, in my state.
Trilith leaders say the moment reflects what the community stands for.
This peace walk was important for us to be a part of because we wanted to make sure the message about peace and coming together as a community was an important message that we send out.
As the monks prepared to walk down Veterans Parkway, what they found here was more than support.
This is well overwhelmed. We have a lot of love and support from Atlanta.
Tran hopes the message carries beyond Fayetteville.
If everybody know how to love, then no trouble, no problem, no war in the world.
Coming together for peace and a shared moment.
Now, the monks will rest here tonight at the Morrow Center. We're here up South Lake Circle. They'll rest here for the night, and then they'll continue their journey tomorrow to Washington, D.C. As you can see, Jovina, a lot of people are here awaiting their arrival.
Yes, Nicole, the community really showed up for them. Thank you so much for that report.
Chief Washington correspondent John Karl, he's out with a new book, Retribution, Donald Trump and the Campaign That Changed America. Welcome, John. Your fourth book on the Trump era, and you first met Donald Trump, what, more than 30 years ago, or about 30 years ago?
1994.
So you guys go way back, and he still talks to you.
Yeah, so I found I was covering this incredible campaign. I mean, we've never had a campaign. George, you and I have been part of our coverage of how many presidential campaigns, more that we want to admit. There's never been a campaign quite like this. And yes, I've known Trump longer than basically anybody else in his White House who isn't related to him. And I was talking to him regularly over the course of the campaign. During the fall, like almost every few days, I would pick up the phone and call him. Sometimes I would get a cold call from him out of the blue, and chronicling this wild campaign, not only a wild story, but the most consequential election of our time.
Well, and that's what you say. He's now set up for the most consequential, radical second term.
Yeah, look, Donald Trump faced in this campaign the real possibility that he was going to go to prison, or that he would get elected and become arguably the most powerful president of our lifetime. Empowered for many reasons, but especially a Supreme Court decision which gives near blanket immunity to the President of the United States.
And you also have revelations in this book, including the handwritten notes of Mike Pence from January 6th?
Yeah, this is an incredible historical document. It's the notes that Pence took in real time when he spoke to Donald Trump at 11 in the morning on January 6th. And Trump was pressuring him to use his role as presiding over the certification of the election to overturn the presidential election. He writes what Trump said to him and what he said in reverse. And there's a moment in the notes where you see Pence actually sketches what looks like an angry face emoji. Trump is telling him, you listen to the wrong people, and Pence is saying in response, I listen to my heart, I listen to my mind.
He also spent a lot of time with a close Trump ally, Steve Bannon.
Bannon spoke to me for hours and hours and hours on the record, George, including giving me a detailed accounting of his time behind bars. He spent 4 months in prison during the campaign, and he told me that while he was in prison, he was communicating with the campaign and with Trump himself through code. He had a way to get messages out, and he was communicating with Trump.
And over the weekend, Steve Bannon did a podcast where he said there's actually a plan for Donald Trump to run for a third term. Of course, that violates the Constitution. The Constitution says you can only be elected twice. But overnight on this trip to Asia, the president did not rule it out.
I will say this, that Trump has been telling people privately, no, I'm going to go. I'm going to be done when this is over. And he goes and he polls people. I've heard this happen on multiple occasions, like on Air Force One. He'll go and ask people, so who do you think, JD or Marco? JD or Marco, who should it be? So, will it happen? Will he try to do it? He clearly can't do it under the Constitution. What I can't tell you, though, George, is how does he pass the baton? How does he finally come out and say, I am not running, and the attention is now on these other guys? The attention is now on those running for the Republican nomination.
Is that the biggest change? I wasn't even sure when he first ran for president that he wanted to be president. Now he can't let go.
Look, first of all, I write pretty extensively about the differences between this campaign, this presidency, and the first. The first presidency captured the world's attention, controversy every day, a lot of chaos. But what happened is it was relatively ephemeral. He left office, Trump was gone. He is changing things now and making a mark beyond anything he did in the first term. The great symbol of that is what we're seeing at the White House right now.
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest changes. He's surrounded by a completely different cast of people second term.
Yeah, he's got people that will do whatever he wants. He doesn't have anybody trying to put a guardrail. And look, he tore down the East Wing of the White House. He's transformed the Oval Office. He's transformed the colonnade, the cabinet room. Those are symbolic, but they're symbolic of what he is doing and the way he is changing the presidency and changing the country.
John Karl, thanks very much. Retribution is out tomorrow.
Hey smart people, Joe here. Beneath your feet, there is a secret network. This network trades resources, transmits information, and it can even go to war. I know what you're thinking. No, this isn't the World Wide Web. It's something much older, 450 million years older, and it makes life on Earth as we know it possible. This is the Wood Wide Web, the most important social network on Earth. Okay, walk into a forest and just listen. You can't hear it, but the forest is communicating. And if you've never noticed this before, it's because all of this is happening below your feet. The Wood Wide Web is a network created by fungi. They're called mycorrhizal fungi. And these fungi live in and around the roots of trees and other plants. Fungi include molds, mushrooms, and yeasts, and as a whole, they're essential to making all of Earth's organic garbage and dead stuff decompose and disappear. While some fungi do resemble plants, they are definitely not plants. They're technically more closely related to animals. But really, fungi are a form of life like no other. These underground fungi are essential to plant survival. They also extend hair-like filaments called hyphae into the soil, which pump water even more efficiently than the tree's own roots. Plants from rose bushes to towering redwoods need these micronutrients to survive. And mycorrhizal fungi are efficient little miners. They use acid to bore holes into rocks and fish out nitrogen and phosphorus. In exchange for all of this subterranean service, a tree provides the mycorrhizal fungi with sugar created through photosynthesis. But these mycorrhizal fungi do more than trade minerals, water, and sugar with their host tree. They also form massive branching networks of the fungal threads called mycelium that can extend thousands of acres, connecting entire forests. And these networks act as fungal freeways for shipping chemical currencies. The fungi can act like a seasonal bank account for trees, giving loans of sugar if the trees need an extra boost. And scientists have found that if a tree is dying, it will release its extra glucose into the wood wide web where it can be delivered to younger nearby trees, even trees of a different species. Trees can also use the network to send out warning signals. If insects bite into one tree, it can send a chemical signal through the wood wide web, and when trees deeper in the forest receive this insect alert message, they produce bitter compounds that make their leaves less tasty to the same insects. Now, across the globe, there are two main types of these mycorrhizal fungi that make up the wood wide web. Trees in cooler climates tend to host one type, which create huge interconnected networks that cover massive areas. But warmer tropical forests tend to be dominated by a different type, which creates smaller, more localized networks. In general, the massive interconnected forest fungal webs tend to lock up carbon in the soil as they decompose stuff. And the more local network fungi tend to release more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. As global temperatures warm up, forests are changing, and the balance of these two types of fungal networks is changing too. More of the planet covered with tropical forests means those large carbon storing fungal networks will be replaced by the more localized fungal networks which release carbon into the air, which will just accelerate climate change, which, even though plants eat CO2, is still not good. So, next time you're walking through a forest, take a moment to think about the very small but also very large network that exists under your feet. Just because you can't log on to the wood wide web doesn't mean you aren't connected. It's time we think of forests as more than trees. Stay curious.
The moon is this great sort of chiaroscuro subject because the most recognizable thing about it is the changing sun angles and how that brings out the shape of craters near the terminator, which is the day-night line. Because there aren't, oceans and clouds and all the things that you see on Earth, the moon is really all about its shape. And the shape is telling you something about its long history and the history of the entire solar system. All the things that have happened to the Earth have been erased by geologic processes and weather and climate, and that doesn't happen on the moon. The moon has recorded everything that's happened since its formation almost 4.5 billion years ago. That tells us a lot about where we came from, where the solar system came from. It also reveals something about the composition of the Earth that we can't see because it's buried beneath the crust. Some of that is on the surface of the moon because it's been excavated by all the impacts. Artemis is our return to the moon after 50 years. The emphasis of Artemis is going to be, first of all, science, but second of all, learning to sustain a presence on another world. First on the moon, but we're hoping that that's a stepping stone to Mars and other destinations in the solar system eventually. Artemis 2 will be a flyby mission. It's not going to land. We're testing all of the technology that we've created for flying to the moon since Apollo. Astronauts will be looking out the window at parts of the moon that have never been seen by human eyes before. They will be flying by the moon at an altitude that's much higher than Apollo's orbits. And so they will see the entire disk of the moon, including areas that are closer to both the North and South Pole that astronauts from Apollo never saw. This is a map of the surface of the moon, obviously, but it shows what the Apollo astronauts could see in sunlight while they were in orbit. The brighter parts are the parts that they could see. The darker parts, like this entire area here and places that are farther north and south, are places that they couldn't see in sunlight, either because it was nighttime there or because it was beyond the horizon of the astronauts. All of the Apollo flights orbited the moon at a distance of about 110 kilometers. Because the astronauts were flying at such a low altitude, their horizon was actually quite close and they couldn't see the North and South poles. And this whole area over here was not in sunlight at the time. And it includes this amazing impact feature here called Oriental. Oriental is a very large impact feature. It's about 650 kilometers wide. It's got multiple rings. These are rings that form like ripples in a pond from the impact, but of course it's on a huge scale. The middle of Oriental has that sort of dark basalt lava covering it, like the dark spots that we see on the near side. It's one of the biggest ones that's more on the far side than the near. So seeing it with human eyes and sort of picking out features that maybe you don't even see in robotic cameras is an important goal for the mission. One of the photographic targets that is on everybody's list is pictures of the Earth beyond the limb of the moon. During Apollo 8, on their fourth orbit, they finally turned their spacecraft around so that they could see in the direction of the Earth.
Oh my God, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow, that's pretty. You got a color film, Jim?
I think it surprised all of them how beautiful and how human it was to see the entire planet Earth from behind the horizon of another celestial body. Artemis is going to have that opportunity once again. I anticipate that the astronauts will have the same feeling that the Apollo 8 astronauts did, and I think it will have a similar effect on a new generation of people who are watching this mission unfold.
So Dylan, the vice president did talk about, he blamed the Biden administration, but acknowledged there's a bit of an affordability issue here in the United States, tariff perhaps playing a part of that. He also, though, was asked if he agreed with the president's assessment of the economy. Trump graded it as an A+++, give or take a plus. The vice president said he certainly did. Are they right?
The thing that's nice about business and the economy in general is that it really doesn't matter what anybody's opinion is. There's enough data that comes out on a regular basis where you can see how is hiring, how are prices, how is consumer spending, all these things. And so what we know for a fact right now is that the overall level of economic activity is in decline, that affordability is less, that things are more expensive, I think, at least most recently because of the tariffs. We also know that the consumer and consumer spending is stronger than people think, and the labor market's still relatively okay. And so you're in a moment where, if any president's going to tell you the economy is A+++, that's a political statement. From an economic standpoint, we're in a transition. The economy is slowing, and I actually think we're missing the elephant in the room, which is not tariffs and it's not manufacturing jobs. It's that 2026 is going to be a tsunami of transition as a political and social force as AI eliminates the demand to hire junior talent in software, junior talent in banking, junior talent in legal, junior talent in marketing. All these transitional jobs for young people are going away or have gone away at a level that I don't think people fully comprehend. And I believe that we really need to start talking more about how you're going to deal with the transition in AI, not just how we're going to benefit from it as investors and as people, but how we're going to deal with a new labor market dynamic and spend less time worried about trying to bring back manufacturing jobs. That even when you rebuild that aluminum factory, it's going to be robotics. The nature of the modern factory just doesn't have the type of jobs that everybody thinks that were there in 1970. And we're now missing the point, which is we're talking about tariffs and manufacturing when we should be talking about the future of work, period, in the era of artificial intelligence.
When you look at an atom, in the middle there is the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, you will find neutron and proton, and electrons are going around them. That vibration is present even in the atom. And that vibration, when our sages knew about it, they learned about it, they said that that vibration is omnipresent, it's everywhere.
It is omniscient.
It is omnipotent and it is omniscient. And then they say that there are 4 Ramas in the world. 3 are described by their physical attributes, and there's one that is beyond its attributes. The first one is the vibration that is roaming around, hence called. First of all, there's the Shaligram. In Nepal, in the Gandak river, we get the Shaligram, which is a fossil. We call it an ammonite. It has the shape of chakras in it. When the ammonites got fossilized thousands of years ago, they became the Shaligram, and it is described as the imprint of the consciousness. It is the footprints of the Lord Vishnu. It is the imprint of consciousness. That is why we call it the Shaligram. It is prayed to. The second one is Parshuram. The third one was King Rama, who was the son of King Dashrath. And the fourth Ram is the Atmaram, the one that roams in our soul. The one that resides within each of us, whether we're Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, or any other faith, without any discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, beliefs. It resides within each and every one of us, giving us strength. And that is why we call it Atmaram, the one that resides in our soul. And our sages indicated to us that that is the Ram that we need to know.
Welcome to the NewsHour. The Justice Department released nearly 30,000 more pages of documents related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, including many that reference President Donald Trump. The new batch comes as the DOJ is being criticized for not releasing all of the documents by the deadline set by Congress and heavily redacting many of those they have put out. Our White House correspondent Liz Landers has been going through the recent batch, and she joins us now. Hi, Liz. What is in this latest release?
This is 30,000 more pages that were put up last night, taken down, and then reposted by the Justice Department. This includes photos, video surveillance, a lot of legal correspondence between different prosecuting areas that were prosecuting the Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell case. There are a few pages of this that are fully redacted, no explanation why. There's also an email that mentions 10 co-conspirators that the FBI was discussing in 2019. That is some news that people have picked up on. And there's also a few mentions of President Trump.
Let's talk about some of those mentions of him. But there are some troubling references in here.
There is a reference in one FBI file that includes a rape allegation. This was apparently made during the height of the 2020 campaign. There's also a court document that talks about a 14-year-old girl who was taken to Mar-a-Lago in 1994. She said that she was there with Jeffrey Epstein, who introduced her to its owner, Donald Trump. Epstein apparently elbowed Trump playfully, asking him, referring to Jane Doe. This is a good one, right? Trump smiled and nodded in agreement. They both chuckled, and Doe felt uncomfortable, but at the time was too young to understand why. There was another Department of Justice internal email sent from a U.S. attorney to an unknown person, again redacted. This was sent in January of 2020, talking about Trump being on Epstein's plane. It says, quote, "For your situational awareness, we wanted to let you know that the flight records we received yesterday reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than we previously had reported or that we were aware of." And it said that he is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996. Now, the Department of Justice put out a statement this morning on social media saying that some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false. And if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already.
So what is President Trump saying about all this?
So President Trump was asked yesterday at his club in Palm Beach about some of the release that had come out, and in particular about former President Bill Clinton being in some of those images that we saw last week. Here's what he said.
A lot of people are very angry that pictures are being released of other people that really had nothing to do with Epstein, but they're in a picture with him because he was at a party, and you ruin a reputation of somebody. So a lot of people are very angry that this continues.
The president has repeatedly expressed his frustration that the Epstein files story continues to dominate the news, while he said it's overshadowing some of the accomplishments of his administration.
This is not how this was all supposed to roll out, right? Congress passed a law. Legislators are upset about this, as are some of the survivors. What are they saying?
To put it bluntly, the way that this has been released by the Department of Justice has not been in compliance with the original intent of the law. The Epstein Transparency Act directed the Department of Justice to publish all of the files and materials related to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Flight logs, records, any grand jury testimony, all of that was supposed to be released, redactions to protect victims' names, but that was it. And anything related to ongoing investigations, that was supposed to be redacted. What we have seen is that not everything has been released all at once. Instead, we're seeing this kind of trickle out over the course of several days now. We've also seen names that have been redacted in some of these emails with no apparent reason why, between attorneys, it looks like. That's not supposed to be covered up in some of these redactions. And also, we've seen that these files have been posted and then taken down in 2 instances now without explanation from the Department of Justice.
Liz Landers, thanks for staying on top of all this for us.
Of course.